All right, hey everyone. Today's June 15, 2024. My name is Chris Lucas. It's about 1:15 a.m. So this stream, try to plan it out a little bit better to get this some sort of decent presentation, but still spur of the moment. I'm still very busy, and I'm afraid if I just don't flat out do it, it ain't gonna ever get done. So it's not gonna be perfect. But anyway, I have posted a link. Oops, shit. Sorry about that. Anyway, I did post a link to this website called Buy Me a Coffee. Now, I only need $1 a month. If people want to donate more, that's fine. But if anyone would like to support the show, buy me a coffee at .com, buymeacoffee.com/Chris Lucas. Okay. The link's in the description. Anyway, and I know some people might think, what's a dollar gonna do? It's just like, what's one guy gonna do if he gets elected and all this other stuff, all the I just say do it and see what happens, because I think if I get, I know this seems crazy, but I think if I can just get 10,000 people to do it, that's enough to fund a ministry, and it's only $1. I mean, can I not find 10,000 people to give a bum $1 a month, right? So that's kind of how I look at it, and I'm actually trying to do something that I think will benefit society, because I got bigger plans than just these kinds of videos. If I actually had my time freed up, there is so much I could do, but I gotta have time freed up to do it. But anyway. So, with that out of the way, I was looking at this the Hebrew translation, the English translation of the Hebrew text in Daniel 8 verse 9 Daniel 8 verse 26. And so when you get down to verse 26, I got the Hebrew up on the screen, and then the English translation of it, which I think is the most accurate translation I've been able to put together. It says the vision of the evening and morning, which was told I'm sorry, because it's a little awkward written. So, but this is almost like a word for word Hebrew to English translation. And the vision of the evening and the morning, which was told, true it is, and you seal up the vision for many days to come. So the reason why this verse is really important to a lot of people might be like, I don't know why this verse is so important. Bye, I'm not going to watch this show. The reason why this is so critical to understanding the entire text is because a lot of people, besides Seventh-day Adventists, there's been a couple other people called, which I don't know why they try to label themselves historicists, but where they try to say that the Daniel 8 prophecy is actually talking about Rome, and I don't see how it is. It clearly is not, but I could understand someone seeing some of that, with the destruction of the temple, but it says it will also be restored after 2000, after evening, morning, 2300. So if you try to say it was 70 AD that it happened in, well, it never got restored. So that's a really bad interpretation, right? And then I don't know what, and then if someone else is trying to take a different approach to it and try to say it's Rome, and there's been other people that try to say it's 2,300 years, and the text just doesn't allow for it. And this is why, if you look up what's on the screen, it's got the it says, okay, evening and morning are in the definite singular. The reason why that's important is let me kind of show you something else. Because I'm gonna have to bring up another. I'm gonna have to bring up something else so you guys can catch this. Oops, that's not it. Actually, let me just bring the screen over to here. I'm gonna have to probably show you something else in the Hebrew so you just understand what I'm saying. Interlinear Daniel 8. Because there's also this other one, which this other phrase wording. Trying to talk while I look this up, and it's a little difficult. Okay, so right here, this word right here where we see ha-tamid, this makes it where it's like the tamid, not just tamid, but the tamid. The reason why this is important, because this means the daily, or some people have translated it the regular, the continual. The reason why this is important is you don't just say continual, because if you do, like if you were just to say tamid without saying ha tamid, right? It could just mean continually. But when you say the continually, that's got a whole different connotation to it, right? Just like in English, if I go continually, or I go the continually, or the continuing, or the continual, right? That might be a little bit proper to say. Like if I say continual, you won't know what I mean. But if I'm like talking about, and if I'm in a setting of a temple, and I go the continual, the regular, right? And we see right here in that it sometimes translates this word continual regularly. Well, if you look up different, I'm not going to go through all the places where it's used, but if you look it up, that's it's like where it doesn't have the ha tamid and it just says tamid, it's just continual, right? Or continually, or continuous, or regular. Okay, but now when we use ha tamid in that kind of setting, it means the. So why is it saying the evening, the morning in verse 26 of Daniel 8? See, that would be my main question to you. It's why is that wording used? And we're going to look at it, and I'm going to show you that even in the interlinear, so you just don't see my translation up on the screen and go, oh man, who's this guy? See, we have it right here in verse 26, and the vision of the evening. Now this is now they put this here in plural, but this is actually singular. Because if it was plural, it would be like ha aravim and wahab bokerim, right? Or bekarim, right? Or aravim for the evening. Aravim would be evenings. Bekarim would be mornings. But since we only see boker, and now right here's a transliteration, and normally on these transliterations, when they're in plural, it's got the im added to it. So right here it would have the im. If it's masculine, if it's feminine, it would have like an ot, right? So if this word was a feminine word, they would add the ot on the end of it. But both of these, I believe, yeah, because right down here it says masculine singular, right? And it even tells you, I know you can barely see it. There's no way I can blow up that little part that pops up right here that pops up every time I scroll on it. But it's telling you it's masculine singular, masculine singular. And the reason why it's telling you, so that's why it's got the, so if it was going to be plural, it would have the im on the end of it. So now, not only does it not have the im on it, so this is the vision of the evening and the morning, which was told was true. Okay. So this makes you go, okay, the vision of the evening and the morning. Why would it use the evening, the morning? Why wouldn't it say, if it's 2,300 evening mornings, why doesn't it say that in verse 14? So just so people know what I'm talking about, if you're just brand new to this, when we read the interlinear, you got to remember that Hebrew is going from right to left. And he said to me, for evening, this is again, they put the plural on here, but this is masculine singular, masculine singular. As you can see, it's just erev, boker, right? So, and he said to me, evening, morning. This shouldn't be days, it's morning. It's the same word that was at the bottom that I just showed you. If I click on it, you're going to see it says morning, okay? It doesn't say days. Days is not in the translation. This is very important. Days is not in the translation. So we see that it's morning, and we see that the other word's evening. So I'm going to click on it just so people can see this. So we see erev, it says evening, okay? And this, both of them singular. And this is a big reason to understand this text, why it cannot be years, and it's not days either. So anyway, and he said to me, for evenings, mornings, 2,300, then shall be cleansed the sanctuary. Okay. So he said to me, evenings, he said to me, for evening, morning, 2,300, then shall be cleansed the sanctuary. Okay, so this is important because if you're reading out of a King James Bible, let me show you this too, because I want to show you why the King James Onlyism is wrong, because this will help you see why Seventh-day Adventism is wrong. And I will go to the 1611 King James Bible. We're going to go online. We're going to go to, and this is something real super easy to prove that King James is wrong. It is a bad, it's not a perfect translation. If people want to use it to read out of, just realize it's not a perfect translation. So right here, you know, they say, he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then the sanctuary shall be cleansed. Now, one big problem we have with that is, if that's the proper translation and it's perfect, guess what? Now, when we get down to here, as we read the whole prophecy, it doesn't mention evening, mornings anywhere, right? So if it doesn't mention evening, mornings anywhere else in here, when we get down to verse 26, then we're going to be confused, because it's going to say, and the vision of the evening and the morning, which, you know, I'm surprised because they got this part right. This is very important. They got it in the singular, which it should be. So you saw like these other versions, I'll read several different versions and they will make it plural. It shouldn't be plural. So I'm really surprised because I didn't read this part of the King James before I did this show, but they got this part right. So, and the vision of the evening and the morning, which was told, is true. Wherefore shut up the vision, and it shall be for many days. So this is key right here, because if this prophecy is if this chapter never mentioned evening and morning, except for right here, verse 26, you're sitting here scratching your head going, wait a minute. The vision of the evening, morning, which was told, where was it told at? So you can go scroll back. Man, what in the world? What vision of the evening, morning? What? Where is it? So you go straight through here, you know, and I'll just kind of slowly, if someone wants to pause it at any point, you go look it up, but you can just, I'll just kind of slowly stop, and you can stop the video, you know. Look at this. We never, ever see evening, morning in any of the text. We got a problem with translating the Bible now. Well, figuring out the Bible. Gosh, where was that vision of the evening, morning at? It got taken out, because they decided to change the words from evening, morning to day in verse 14. So now you don't know where that's at. right? Big problem here. This is why I think I can easily win any King James only debate, because this would just, because if guys go, oh no, it's a perfect translation. Well, where's this at? Where's this vision at? You just took the vision right on out of there, right? Unless you read the Hebrew, you don't know where to look for this. Where can you say where was this vision of the evening morning? Not in there anymore, right? So that's a real quick killer for the King James onlyism, because I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean evening morning, right? Okay, so the big reason why this is so important is why did they use this wording? Why didn't they use plural? And now definitely if I was debating King James only, my thing would be like, shouldn't this say the vision of the days, which was told is true? Why doesn't it say that? All right. And so that debate would be gone right off the bat, because one of these two verses have messed up. It's either verse 26, which didn't say the vision of the days, or verse 14, which says 2,300 days. Maybe it should be evening, morning, right? So the reason why I'm bringing this up is I'm going to bring back up my notes that I wrote. I can make it pop back up. And I'm not really sure why it's not popping up. Oh man, I just don't know why that's not popping up. That's kind of frustrating. Oh man, sorry about this. Oh boy. Okay, here we go. I think I might accidentally close it or something. So let me enlarge it so we can all read it. So in biblical Hebrew, the plural form is often used to indicate multiple instances or a collective concept. If the author of Daniel intended to refer to many days, one might expect the plural forms of aravim for evenings and bekarim for mornings. So that would be the plural of boker. However, the text does not use these plural forms. Instead, it uses the singular forms, erev for evening and boker for morning. And that's in both instances in Daniel 8:14 and Daniel 8:26. So which typically refer to actual times of day. This choice suggests a counting of specific instances, 2,300 instances of evening, morning sacrifices, rather than a general reference to time periods. And the reason why I say this, and I'll read this later, is that in Numbers 28 and Exodus 29, they talk about this daily sacrifice, where you sacrifice a lamb in the evening and one lamb in the morning, right? So you do two sacrifices a day, one in the evening, one in the morning. When we were reading Daniel 8, when we're reading Daniel 8, especially when you get down to verses 9 through 12, it's talking about this little horn and the trampling of the sanctuary and the daily sacrifice, right? And how it's going to take away the daily sacrifice. Well, the daily sacrifice consists of an evening, morning sacrifice. So now, when we were seeing this evening, morning 2,300, we see it in singular. So it's really weird. Why does it, because in English, you would say 2,300 evenings and mornings. So it's really weird that they go evening, morning 2,300, right? So that's something that should have, like a light should go off right there, like, what's going on here? And then when you read verse 26, same thing, the evening and morning which was told is true. Don't So what that would do is, if you said the evening and the morning, wait a minute, you just told me 2,300 evening, morning. If And now in verse 26 you're saying, oh, wait a minute, only one of those are special. So out of 2,300, you're saying the vision of this one particular evening, morning's true. Wait a minute, why would you say that? Why is the focus only on one evening and morning? Because it would say evenings, mornings was the vision of the evenings and mornings, which was told was true. But it's wait a minute, it's only saying evening, morning, so it only wants me to focus on one evening, morning. But why did it tell me 2,300 evening, mornings? Right? You see, you should be thinking about this. And a lot of people who read this, they just brush it off, and they don't really think about it. And I get kind of sick of Bible teacher, so-called Bible experts and Bible teachers teaching you about prophecy, and they just go over that like it's nothing. It's like, no, that's a significant point, because it's referring to an instance, right? It's either referring to a specific instance of all those 2,300 evening, morning, or the evening, morning itself is an instant, like a ritual, right? So, oh, wait a minute. So the vision of the evening, morning ritual, like the part of the Ha Tamid, the daily sacrifice. Oh, wait, okay. So see, you would use singular, definite singular, if you're talking about an evening, morning as referring to a sacrifice. Now I get it. Oh, now I get it. So now the reason why you're using the singular in verse 26 and in verse 14 is probably because not that in verse 26 you're referring to only one specific evening, morning, but what that evening, morning ritual in of itself is. So when you're saying that it's going to take away the daily sacrifice, oh, this little horn's going to take away the daily sacrifice. So now if I read the vision of the evening, morning, which was told was true, oh, now I know why it's saying it's in singular, because it's just it's a specific, it's referring to a specific event, a specific ritual, a specific instance, but not just one specific evening, morning, because it doesn't make sense, because it just said 2,300 evening, morning, right? So that's what I'm getting at. And so hopefully as I read this, it's, things make sense to you as I read this. So I know that's a point that's going to be a little hard for people to get, but I'm going to kind of read through this one more time after briefly summarizing my point. And now we're going to. So anyway, it says, however, the text does not use these plural forms. Instead, it uses the singular forms erev for evening and boker for morning, which typically refer to the actual times of day. This choice suggests a counting of specific instances, 2,300 instances of evening, morning sacrifices, rather than a general reference to time periods. So when I say the symbolic interpretation, what I'm referring to is when someone goes, oh, it's symbolic of years. And it's like, where can you make this up from the text? Okay. But anyway, it's like, well, no, I won't say, oops, this is not my exact wording. The use of evening, morning elsewhere in the Bible, particularly in the creation count in Genesis, consistently denotes a literal day. So when Seventh-day Adventists try to tell me that we can change evening, morning to a day, and then we can change a day to a year, because I don't understand why. Why do you get to change an evening, morning to a year? But they keep trying to say, well, in Numbers, they got this day for a year prophecy, which But in Numbers, it tells you to do that. It doesn't tell you in chapter. There's nothing to tell you. If we start doing that everywhere in the Bible, well, we're going to have to turn everything, okay, well, in Daniel 9, we know that's 490 years. So what do? Take 490 years times 365, get like what? 178,000 days. And then we say, oh, that's a 178,000 year prophecy. No, you can't do that. So if the text doesn't tell you to do that, just like in Daniel 9, it doesn't tell you can do that. In Daniel 8, it doesn't tell you can do that. And you can turn it into a single morning. So yes, the use of evening, morning elsewhere in the Bible, particularly in the creation account in Genesis, consistently denotes a literal day. So you cannot go and change it, because whenever we see evening and morning used, it always means a literal day. Show me where it doesn't mean a literal day. Okay. So even if you want to say, no, Chris, you're wrong, it doesn't refer to sacrifices. Show me where evening and morning is ever used in the Bible and it doesn't denote a literal day. Because you guys go to Genesis, I'm going, yes, evening and a morning makes a literal day, and we only see evening and morning mentioned in Daniel. We don't even see the word day used in the text, right? So you can't do that. So that's one point I'd like to make, because every single time evening and morning is used, it's either referring to sacrifices like in Numbers 28, Exodus 29, or it's referring to a literal day, right? So you can't do that. So, or show me where you get permission to do that. Anyway, in biblical Hebrew, the plural form is often used to indicate multiple instances of something. So if the text in Daniel 8:14 were referring to multiple separate periods of light and dark, it would likely use the plural forms bokerim for mornings or aravim for evenings. Or sometimes I've seen it transliterated where it's bekerim and aravim, aravim, but it's almost sounds the exact same. So that's transliteration right there is a little bit different than I showed earlier, but it's basically the same thing. The use of the singular forms boker and erev in the phrase erev boker 2,300 suggests a count of sacrificial cycles, one evening and one morning sacrifice, rather than a count of days or periods of light and dark. This interpretation supports the idea that the passage is specifically referencing the Tamed sacrifices, which were a central part of the daily ritual in the temple. And like I showed you, it's verse 26 is saying ha erev wa ha boker. So that ha erev and ha boker, that's the morning, the evening. Just like it references, I think it's in Daniel 8 verse 11, it's talking about the daily. It goes ha tamid. So it's saying the tamid. So that's like an added point I want to add. In the context of Daniel 8:14, erev boker 2,300 uses the singular forms of evening and morning, followed by the number 2,300. This construction is distinct from 2,300 erevim and bokerim, which would use plural forms of the nouns. The singular form of the original text suggests a count of sacrificial cycles, each consisting of one evening and one morning sacrifice, rather than a count of literal days or periods of light and dark. The choice to use the singular forms erev and boker, followed by the numeral 2,300, emphasizes the continuity and the regularity of the sacrifices. It aligns with the interpretation that the passage is referencing the tamid sacrifices without needing to repeat the term tamid, since it's already been established in the preceding verses. Oops, sorry, I kind of lost my place. Okay. The screen kind of jumped around on me. If the intention of Daniel 8:14 was to refer to literal evenings and mornings, the Hebrew text would likely have used the plural forms bokerim for mornings and aravim for evenings, and the number 2,300 would precede these nouns. This would be consistent with the Hebrew grammar rules, where the numeral typically agrees with the noun and gender and number. And for numbers greater than 10, the numeral is followed by either the singular or the plural form of the noun. The actual phrase erev boker 2,300 uses the singular forms and places the number after the nouns, which suggests a count of sacrificial cycles rather than a count of literal days. This supports the interpretation that the passage refers to the tamid sacrifices, emphasizing the continuity and regularity of the sacrificial system rather than a mere passage of time, right? So the singular form highlights the unit of one evening and one morning sacrifice as a single entity, a daily cycle of offerings. In summary, the grammatical structure of the phrase in the original Hebrew text of Daniel 8:14 is a strong indicator of its intended meaning and pointing to the tamid sacrifices rather than to literal periods of light and darkness. The use of the singular form in both verses 14 and 26, along with the context of the preceding verses, strengthens the argument that the phrase erev boker 2,300 is not about literal days, but about the number of sacrificial cycles, including one evening and one morning sacrifice. So here I got the reference to Numbers 28, verses 3 through 4. These are the gift offerings that you may present to Yahweh. As a regular burnt offering every day, 2 lambs in their first year without blemish. You shall offer 1 lamb in the morning, and the other lamb you shall offer at twilight. Here the Hebrew uses the singular forms to refer to the daily offerings, which are part of a continual cycle. So when it says twilight, that's evening. I'm pretty sure it's erev in that very verse, but for some reason the English translates it to twilight. Exodus 29, verses 38 through 39. Now this is what you shall offer on the altar: 2 one-year-old lambs each day continuously. 1 lamb you shall offer in the morning, and the other lamb you shall offer at twilight. Again, the regular forms are used to describe, again, the singular forms are used to describe 2 daily offerings, emphasizing the regularity of the sacrifices. So I'll just go over this one point. I really got to get a new mouse. Sorry about this. So I'm just going to go over this. I think I already probably said this, but I wrote down a note saying key point. It says the singular usage of evening, morning in Daniel 26, coupled with the definite article, suggests a reference to a singular entity or concept rather than a numerical count of days. So my question would be, if anyone wants to fight me on this, it's like, why in the world is the evening and the morning used in verse 26 of Daniel chapter 8 if it's referring to, like, the focus is on days, right? No, Chris, it's actually talking about 2,300 days, which are actually years. But if you're going to say it's years, why does the author focus go the vision of the evening and of the morning, which you saw is true, or which you saw was true? I think they used the word was. The vision of the evening, morning, which you saw was true. Okay, so But wait a minute. This was a vision of 2,300 evening, morning 2,300. What do you mean the vision of the evening, the morning? Like it's just one. Like I only saw a vision of one evening and one morning. The only way you can even make that jive with the text to make it square away, to make it make sense, is to say it must be talking about the sacrificial system. Because if it was talking about literal periods of day and night, or evening and morning, parts of day, right? Literal parts of day is what I should say. Then you would say, you would use the plural, because you would be like, because it would be about a bunch of evenings and a bunch of mornings, right? So this must be something going on in the temple that goes on daily. So I wouldn't say the vision of the dailies which you saw was true, right? Like if I was like, if it said daily 2,300, right? Like let's say it would have used that, right? Instead of saying evening, morning 2,300. If it would have said daily 2,300, then the sanctuary shall be cleansed. And so if when we get down to verse 26, it wouldn't say the vision of the dailies that you saw was true. No, it would say the vision of the daily, which you saw was true. Okay. So and because it's just because it's an event, it's focused on the singular event of the sacrifice itself. But it's not talking about just one singular sacrifice that got messed up, right? Because like I said, you would never use the words 2,300 dailies, or you wouldn't say the vision of the dailies, which you saw was true. Seal up the vision, right? It just doesn't make sense. You would say, even though it says 2,300, like let's say it said 2,300 daily in that verse 8:14. When you get down to verse 26, it would say the vision of the daily you saw was true, not dailies. Okay, so that's kind of the point I'm making. So if you're going to argue against this, well, now you have to explain why the singular was used, and it doesn't make sense. So I'm going to go over a couple more things about this verse. See, I got the King James up here because I did say I want to show you something. Because you can go to the original King James. I want to show you something because I know King James onlyists are sitting there and probably a little mad. But I want to show you something in the footnotes. Should be. Oh, I know it's around here somewhere. It's just this is so. Okay, so we get down here. And you can barely see it. It's not going to be real good on your screen. It's not good on my screen either, and I can't fix this. But right here, it's got a footnote. So it's got this little cross, right? And then when you look over to the side, you see this cross right over here. And it's got Hebrew, like this abbreviation for Hebrew, HEB, and it says evening, morning. Okay, so the problem is, and they got it right next to the word days, right? So it's giving you a note and it says days, but then over here it says evening, morning. So what they did was, if someone says, "Oh no, the King James Bible is a perfect translation from God," you're lying, because even the authors themselves said the Hebrew says evening, morning. So it's not a perfect translation. So cut it out, stop lying, stop lying, because now this is just a straight up lying, because even the translators are saying you're lying. Okay, it's just a lie at this point, because the translators, that's why they have that right here. They're telling you, no, when we read the Hebrew, it actually says evening, morning, but we decided to put our interpretation into the text, is what they're telling you. This is their interpretation, that they think it means days. That's their interpretation. But they say the actual Hebrew means evening, morning. It's saying evening, morning. So what they did was they're telling you straight up with that little footnote. No, we're not translating it. We're putting our interpretation onto the text. Or so when you tell people, oh no, it's a perfect translation from God, you're lying, because they're saying no. We're putting our translation, our interpretation onto the text, and their interpretation is wrong, because once you take evening, morning out of it, then where's the vision of the evening, mornings, which was told was true, right? It says that in verse 26. The vision of the evening and morning, which was told was true. But now we took that out of, because we took those words out. Now, if you say this is a perfect translation, now we're like, oh, well, we better keep going backwards, because we got to go find wherever it was where the evenings and mornings was told. So, I mean, that should really kind of like, do away with the crazy King James perfect Bible talk, right? Like I said, people can use it, but you've got to remember, at least make it clear to people, that, hey, this is they put their interpretation onto some of these texts. Some of these texts are not the actual original God-breathed words. They're actually the interpretation of the translators, and even the translators admit it right over to the side. Be honest with them. Don't lie about it. And that's why people shouldn't say these things, because you know what? A lot of these people that say, oh, King James only is perfect translation, they have not went over all the Hebrew. They don't know this. I could point to other passages, but I'm trying to keep this video just relating to the Seventh-day Adventists. But this is one argument. If I ever got in a King James only debate, I think this would pretty much shut it down. Like, why do I need to make a 3-hour debate when I can end this debate in about an hour, maybe 30 minutes, and just focus on this? So this is part of the reason why I don't even do a King James only debate, because I'm like, what's the point? I mean, if someone wants to debate me, sure. But I mean, right here, when we get here, what are you going to really say to me? I might actually submit this video to a couple of King James only. It's like what's his name? Will Kinney, or and that other guy. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. The two people, though, that SFT, Standing for Truth Ministries, has on his debate shows. Because I think that's a pretty much an argument that ends everything. So I will go over one more point, and that would be Daniel 9. Because when I'm reading this whole text, Seventh-day Adventists keep trying to connect Daniel 9 back to Daniel 8. I keep challenging them to show me one verse leading up to verse 23 that would make me think that this word right here, the vision, because it says, let me read it. Okay, at the beginning of your supplications went out the command, and I have come to tell you, for greatly beloved are you. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. Right, and so the Seventh-day Adventists try to say this word right here, bombare, it means it. Okay, because we found this same word in chapter 8. Suddenly they must be talking about the same vision, because they see the same word and like, oh, it's the same vision. No. You just because someone uses the same word does not necessarily mean the same vision. You have to show me what's in this text that would even lead you to believe that, right? And so I'm just gonna go to like a normal version of this and read it. Let me see here. Let me go to Daniel So I'm just going to read this out of here. We're going to read the whole thing, and we're going to see when do we see that this should be connected. So in the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared to me, Daniel, subsequent to the one that had appeared to me earlier. And in the vision I saw myself in the capital of Susa, in the province of Elam. I saw in the vision that I was beside the Ulai Canal. Then I lifted up my eyes. Oops, nope, sorry, wrong one. I meant to read Daniel. I was thinking about Daniel 8 and went to Daniel 8. Sorry about that. So what's in Daniel 9 that would even lead me to believe at all that this, I'm trying to make it just a little bit bigger. That this is talking about Daniel 8. Now you gotta think this is years later, right? So it's not like Daniel 8 happened and now it's the very next day and Daniel 9's happening. This is years later. You know, Daniel's got other things on his mind. A lot of different things have happened since then, right? And now what's on Daniel's immediate mind? It's not Daniel 8. It's not that vision. So now, hold on, let me get a drink. In the first year of Darius, the son of Xerxes, a Mede by descent, who was made ruler over the kingdom of the Chaldeans, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood from the sacred books, according to the word of the Lord, to Jeremiah the prophet, that the desolation of Jerusalem would last 70 years. So Jeremiah had this 70-year prophecy that for the desolation of Jerusalem. And so Daniel knows it's almost up. So he says, so I turn my attention to the Lord God. So he's thinking about the Jeremiah's prophecy. So I turn my attention to the Lord to seek him by prayer and petition with fasting, sackcloth, and ashes. And I prayed to the Lord my God and confessed, O Lord, the great and awesome God who keeps his covenant of loving devotion. To those who love him and keep his commandments, we have sinned and done wrong. We have acted wickedly and rebelled. We have turned away from your commandments and ordinances. We have not listened to your servants, the prophets, who spoke in your name to our kings, leaders, and fathers, and to all the people of the land. To you, O Lord, belongs righteousness, but this day we are covered in shame. The men of Judah, the people of Jerusalem, and all of Israel, near and far, in all the countries to which you have driven us because of our unfaithfulness to you. O Lord, we are covered with shame, our kings, our leaders, our fathers, because we have sinned against you. To the Lord our God belong compassion and forgiveness, even though we have rebelled against him, and we have not obeyed the voice of our Lord our God to walk in his laws, which set before us through his servants, the prophets. All of Israel has transgressed your law and turned away, refusing to obey your voice. So the oath and the curse written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, has been poured out on us because we have sinned against you. You have carried out the word spoken against us and against our rulers by bringing upon us a great disaster. For under all of heaven, nothing has ever been done like what has been done to Jerusalem. Just as it is written in the law of Moses, all of this disaster has come upon us, yet we have not sought the favor of the Lord our God by turning from our iniquities and given our attention to your truth. Therefore, the Lord has kept the calamity in store and brought it upon us. For the Lord our God is righteous in all that he does, yet we have not obeyed his voice. Now, O Lord our God, who brought your people out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand, and who made yourself a name renowned to this day, we have sinned, we have acted wickedly. Our Lord, in keeping with all your righteous acts, I pray that your anger and wrath may turn from your city, Jerusalem, your holy mountain, for it is because of our sins and the iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and your people are a reproach to all around us. So now, our God, hear the prayers and petitions of your servant. For your sake, O Lord, cause your face to shine upon your desolate sanctuary. Incline your ear, O my God, and hear. Open your eyes and see the desolation of the city that bears your name. For we are not presenting our petitions before you because of our righteous acts, but because of your great compassion. O Lord, listen. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, hear and act. For your sake, O my God, do not delay, because your city and your people bear your name. And so now we get to the main part. While I was speaking and praying, confessing my sin and that of my people Israel, and presenting my petition before the Lord my God concerning his holy mountain, while I was praying, Gabriel, the man I had seen in the earlier vision. So he's just saying, okay, so he's just saying, oh, I see that guy that I saw in that other vision. Okay. So now Gabriel comes to him again, and he says, came to me in a swift flight about the time of the evening sacrifice. So here we got the time of the evening sacrifice. He instructed me and spoke with me, saying, "Oh, Daniel, I have come now to give you insight and understanding. At the beginning of your petitions, an answer went out, and I have come to tell you, for you are highly precious. So consider the message and understand the vision." Right? So he's telling him, understand this coming vision coming up. Right? Because see, it says at the beginning of your petitions, what was he petitioning about? Nothing about Daniel 8. He was not petitioning anything about that. So it's like at the beginning of your petitions, what were those petitions about that we just read? It's about Jerusalem and saying Jeremiah's prophecy. Remember, he mentioned Jeremiah's prophecy. He didn't mention, oh, I was reading the Daniel 8 prophecy. Because if he was reading the Daniel 8, maybe this might have something to do with it, but he's reading Jeremiah's prophecy about the desolations. So and he's praying and he's petitioning with God about that particular thing. An answer went out, and I have come to tell you, for you are highly precious. So consider the message and understand the vision. And then it starts to go into it. So we see that he was not worried about an antichrist or anything like that either. He is worrying about his people and Jeremiah's prophecy and the desolation of Jerusalem. That's all he's worried about, right? And then he goes into the prophecy. And I'm not going to bother reading the prophecy because that was the most important point. What I would like to do is look at the interlinear of this, because it says at the time of the evening sacrifice. I'm just kind of curious how they said the evening sacrifice. And so anyway, oh yeah. And yes, while I was speaking in prayer, and the man Gabriel, whom I've seen in the vision at the beginning. Okay, so here it is, about the time of the. Okay, so we see it again right here. Erev, it's all the same, right? But anyway, we see that. So the gift, so offering of the evening. Oh yeah, see, it's still the same. See, it says erev, so same thing. So still the same exact thing. Would like to know what the difference is and why it put it like that, though. So anyway, gosh, there was one more point I want to make. Oh yeah, that 2300. That's definitely. And I'm going to get to that text because I'm pretty sure I got it somewhere right here saved. That is 2300 evenings, and that 2300 evenings and mornings. Oh, why did it do that? Anyway, this 2300 evenings and mornings. This is a proper. This is a proper translation. It's not a well. Hold on. that 2300 evenings, mornings, it's actually 1150 days, just about, right? Because they give that sacrifice once in the evening, once in the morning, but it's basically telling you 2,300 sacrifices altogether. And some people would be like, well, no, it can't be it. Well, hold on now. That's not the Jews. There's actually Jews that actually agree that that's how it should be translated. And I'm about ready to show that. And this is actually even from Seventh-day Adventists. So Seventh-day Adventists have fought me on this, but in actuality, your own pioneers, right? They use these Jews, these exact same Jews, to try to justify doing a day for year prophecy. But a problem is there's this one Jewish sage or Jewish rabbi named Sadia, right? And so the Seventh-day Adventists themselves say Sadia was perhaps the first among the Gaonim to formulate a comprehensive view of the messianic predictions presented in his commentary in the book of Daniel. I can't even pronounce his other word. I'm not going to bother. So the 8th chapter of his I'm not going to say all that Hebrew writing, that wording either. He contends that both the 1290 days of Daniel 12 and the 1335 days, beginning 45 days earlier, are to be reckoned as years. But he did not fix a beginning on the period for the period. Similarly, with the 2300, only these he divided by 2, obtaining 1150. In the field of prophetic exegesis, Sadea says that the stone of Daniel 2 is the messianic power. He writes thus of the kingdom symbolized in Daniel 2. So I'm not going to bother reading it. The main point is, and it would be interesting on why I wish they would explain why Sadea said that. Why did he say that? Oh, probably because they understood that the 2,300 evening mornings were sacrifices, and you divide it by 2 to get 1,150 days. But see, that would kill your 2,300 day prophecy, which you're trying to turn into 2,300 years. And I wonder if the Seventh-day Adventists even knew that the King James had that wrong by even saying it was days. But anyway, that the whole reason why he's dividing that. And then they also point to another one. So there's another source they even used. I'm not sure if it's this guy. Okay, not him. No, not that one. Oh, not this one either. But they basically did say that they looked at that guy's pretty highly, though, that one guy quoted so far. I can't remember where exactly this is. So sorry about this. Because I thought they had one more guy. I know they got one more guy that they used, which was also saying it was okay, yeah, well, I'm just gonna read this. It says Sadia ben Joseph, so that's who was doing this. Gaon of Sura, famous Academy of Babylonian, is called the pioneer of the scientific Jewish exegesis, opening the golden age of prophetic interpretation. He built primarily on the literal sense and rejected the naturalistic explanation of miracles. Oh no, I basically read what he said. I'm pretty sure they had one more guy, but I cannot find him. But anyway, I can't find him. I'm trying to see if I can find it, but but I know there was a couple of Jewish authors who basically said that it was 1,150 days. That's my main point. I just at least want to find one of them. So it's not like it's the craziest thing in the world to think, oh my gosh, he went and divided it by half. Hey, Sherry, Numbers 14:34. Yes, thank you, Sherry. Thank you very much. So this is the prophecy that the Seventh-day Adventists use to try to turn the days into years. And so Numbers 14:34 says, after the number of days in which ye search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and ye shall know my breach of promise. So Seventh-day Adventists go, because they did it in this one passage, you now get to apply it to everything in the Bible that you want to. So when Jesus said 3 days and 3 nights, it's 3 years. When just everywhere else, it's got to be turned into years. Every single other place. And I just don't understand why we would go and suddenly start saying everything's got to be a day for a year now. It doesn't make sense. And this passage, it clearly tells you that. Now, why don't we? Now, other passages, it says a day for God is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as one day. So why just stop at a mere year? Why don't we turn it into 1,000 years? And why don't we just say, oh, you must be wrong because a year for 1,000 year, or a day for 1,000 year prophecy. And then we'll just turn it into oh gosh, what is it, like 2,300,000 year prophecy or something like that. So I don't get that. I'll just kind of read through the comments, but that was my main point. I don't think that a Seventh-day Adventist can argue with any of this. I'd like to see that. What's your best argument for why in the world would we take Daniel 8? Oops, let me get back to Daniel 8 so I can make this point. Why does verse 26 say the vision of the evening and morning, which that has been spoken, is true? Remember, this is not plural. This is singular. Why would this singular use be used? Here, I'm going to go to my translation because this is the correct way it should be translated. It's not, even the original King James has it evening and morning, definite article, which means the evening. So that's what definite means. So it's definite article and singular. So the evening, the morning. Why would you use the evening, the morning in verse 26 if you were talking about something that's referring to multiple mornings and evenings, and if it was referring to years? It just doesn't make sense, because it would seem this wording would only refer to one specific evening and morning. That's why it's saying the evening, the morning. It's talking about a singular event. Now, you're either talking about one singular event in that entire prophecy where all that stuff happens when that person's asking, how long. It says evening, morning, 2,300. But you also have to make it jive with that, because it said 2,300 evening, morning, and down here it says the vision of the evening, morning is true. Why is it? Because now that is definitely in Hebrew. If you use it that way, you're talking about a singular evening and morning, unless it's referring to an event, like a sacrifice, right? That's done evening, morning. All right. So anyway, I'll just make sure I finish with that point. So sorry about reading these comments a little late. I know you said this earlier. So you said listening on speaker Shabbat Shalom. So Shabbat Shalom to you also, Nanya. Day 49/50 for you of the 7 of 7 Sabbaths. The Shavuot. That's what's called in Hebrew, right? Pentecost. We count on Omer counting Sunday as the morrow. After the 7th Sabbath, we look for the only commanded holy Sunday ever. Okay, so you keep it the same way I keep it, because I know some people say it should be done after the first day of unleavened bread. And that's the way I understand it. So the way you're doing it is the way I understand it. So it's cool that you're keeping it. Shavuot or weeks. Okay, so I was right. It was Shavuot. I was kind of guessing. So Shavuot or weeks is after Saturday sundown for me. Literally the day the Father shouted down the 10 commandments, but commanded to celebrate it on the first day of the 7th month. Blessings for all. And he said, look up the interlinear Daniel 9 to seal up the vision and the prophet, not the prophecy. All right, I'll go ahead and do that. That's kind of a minor thing I can do. Let's see here. So it's just verse 24. So 70 Sabuim. So here, there's another point I'll make too, since we're talking about evenings and mornings. This word weeks, it's not a literal week. And if you look at, let me just jump to Daniel 10 so people can see this point real quick. If you jump to Daniel 10, I think it's around verse 3. Yeah, it says, in days those, I, Daniel, was mourning 3. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. This mouse is so sensitive. So, and for some reason it didn't go to, I don't know why it went back to 9 when I'm trying to make it go to 10. This is kind of just a minor point, but it's kind of an important point. Oh man, this mouse, I got to get a new mouse. So this. But anyway, so sorry about this, folks. This is what I'm trying to get donations. So I can buy little things like a mouse. But anyway, it says, in days those, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 weeks full. So when it says full, it doesn't actually say that in the Hebrew. It's got the word yamim, which means day. And I'll click that so people can see. See, it means yom means day, but when it's yamim, like I said, it's got that im on the end of it. When it's in that plural form of masculine, because masculine nouns, so you can see up here it says noun masculine, they'll add that im sound to it, right? If it was a female, it would be ot. You would see on the end of it, but when it's got that im, that's a plural. So this yamim, this is day. So I, Daniel, was mourning 3 weeks, but we see that word sabuim, just like in the in Daniel 9, we see sabuim, days, right? So weeks of days. Okay, so when it's saying like sabuim of days, it will tell you weeks, days, right? 3 weeks, days. Now when we look at Daniel 9 and we get down here to that prophecy. So here we got verse 4. We do not see the word. He does not say 70 weeks of days. It just says Sabuum 70. So, so when he says it like that, we know like a sabbatical cycle of years is 7, right? So normally, if it's said like that, it's normally referring to a sabbatical cycle of years, and because of the prophecy of Jeremiah's 70 years of captivity that Daniel was reading earlier, it's now saying Sabuum 70. So it's not just 70 years, but now a sabuum, 70 sabuum, so now it's like 7 times that amount is basically what. So, and knowing that Jeremiah's prophecy was years, it's logical to go, okay, now when you're saying 770, you're talking 7 times that amount, right? So 70 sevens. So that's the word sabuum. It just means sevens. So 70 sabuums are determined for your people, for city, your holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in righteousness everlasting, and to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the holy most. So he was saying that to seal up the vision and the prophet, not the prophecy. So let's go look at that. I don't know enough to know, but it's only used as prophecy one time. Translated prophecy one time. And it's translated prophecy. Prophets 165 times. Prophet 165 times, and prophets 147 times. Prophets only one. Prophecy only one time. So okay, and that might be prophet. So 70 weeks I've determined to make an end of sins, to make so let me kind of read that again then. 70 weeks are determined for your people. 70 weeks are determined for your people, for your holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophet, and to anoint the most holy. So that's curious. I wonder what that means, to seal up the prophet then. Huh. Now you got me wondering, man, what that might actually mean. I got to think about that a little bit, and because that's part of the Hebrew I hadn't noticed. So, anyway, Truth Free says, I don't know much about Seventh-day Adventists. Ellen White, Catholics are papal Rome or Babylon. So anyway, Sherry says, God opens the word up to the humble brother. He closes it to the proudful, and the ones who think they know it all. Stay humble and understand that no man can master the book. God has to reveal it to us. Yes. Studying prophecy has actually, just this alone has definitely like humbled me. It made me rethink the entire Bible the more I look into it, and all the crazy pushback I've gotten, because I really thought this wasn't gonna, like, honestly, like, I did not know hardly anything about the book of Daniel 3 years ago. I mean, I just knew that it looked to me like Antiochus fulfilled Daniel 8. Antiochus's persecution of the Jews but I never knew all the little nuances like evening, morning, and that, that Jews ever thought that that meant 1,150 days. And I didn't know that, that evening, morning was a reference to the sacrifices and all that stuff. And you would think that like sometimes, to me, just showing people all this, I'm like, the history and just to, show them how the history matches up and then still get such pushback from people. It's really surprising to me. And I don't know. It humbles me in a way, because when I start to go and talk to like archaeologists and things like that, and try to get a little bit more insight, and I start reading all these like journals where they do exact dating and everything. Um, it's to me, it's kind of a miracle that all this stuff even exists, because it doesn't seem like people are very supportive of it. Surprisingly, it seems like it's really needed, but people seem to want to hold on to their pet beliefs. And it's almost like I've started noticing that like a lot of Bible teachers want to have their own sort of fan fiction. Because when I read Ellen White and I pick up the Great Controversy, to me it's in this like paperback book. So I got like Pilgrim, if I pick up something like this, like I got the Pilgrim's Progress, and I pick up some little paperback, it looks like some kind of like fan fiction novel. And I feel like that's all it is. And it's like where they come up with their own stories that they try to weave into the Bible, and they're more obsessed about their own little fan fiction stories than they are about the Word of God, which has really surprised me over the past 3 years. Because up until 3 years ago, I really thought a lot more people were way more sincere than me. There's a lot of people I criticize now. I actually used to look up to some of these people, and I thought I was like a scumbag compared to them, right? Like, oh man, they these guys are so devoted, and they must know the Bible so well, because I'm reading the Bible, I can't see this stuff. They must have this like super knowledge where they know the text so well. And you see them jumping around and connecting all these things. And then when I start to finally get a chance to look at it, because I've worked a lot of I used to work a job where I'm just looking at four walls all day, and I'm just doing nothing but like hard labor at a job. I don't have time to study. I get home and take care of some kids and pass out. It's like, and sleep 2 hours a day. And I did this for about 7 years straight. And before that, I was working like 90 hours a week. So it's like I never had time to really sit down and study. I finally, got a good job 4 years ago, was able to buy a couple of computers. And at my job, it also allows me to have like little breaks where I can look something up and I can read just 10 minutes here, 5 minutes here, and I can listen to a lot of stuff. And as I start to understand things, I'm like, these people are just amazing to me. That you mean you're teaching me all this crazy stuff and it's not even in the Bible? Like, trying to tell me Daniel 8's about a future Antichrist and Daniel 9 is, and I'm learning this stuff, and I'm like, it's not even in the text. Like the Hebrew itself doesn't even allow for it. And now you got AI to help me out, and I can like, okay, does this text actually even say this? And I'm like reading like the specific text and like the actual Hebrew in it. It's like, no, the actual Hebrew does not say that. And I'll debate the AI. Like before I even made this video, I probably spent almost I've been working on this for almost a year now, going over this, because I didn't know the Hebrew good enough. I brought it up one time in an argument, but I wasn't quite sure. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to kind of like sit on it for a while. And I kept looking at the words and thinking about it. And then when I made those Seventh-day Adventist videos a week ago, I was listening to it and I was like, oh, that is weird that it says ha, erev, and ha, boker. And I was like, that's weird. I wonder why it says that. And it just all of a sudden it clicked to me when I was thinking about the definite article. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. That's really weird, because ha tamid is a definite article, which means the daily. And then it put two and two together. And then it's just like you got all these like people that say they're Bible scholars and stuff, and they fight me so hard. And I'm not talking about just 17 Adventists, man. I'm talking about like like a lot of these other people that are teaching prophecy and things like that at these churches. And it's just to know that, like to finally have my eyes open and be like, wow, it's like I'm sitting here, you guys are making me think I'm like the biggest, like I'm some kind of like low person, because I'm sitting here going, wow, I don't see any of this in it, only to find out it's not even really in there. These guys were making it up. It's like they're just making their own fan fiction up, and they fight it so passionately. And you would like, it always just blows me away that these people could sit there and tell me they love God so much, and that and act like they're so passionate about the truth and about the word of God. And then just to see that they're just like twisting it away, and I'm just like, and it's just not making any sense of it and leading other people, just like confusing people. And that's kind of been like my most mind-blowing thing about all this the past 3 years is not even just like the Seventh-day Adventists, it's like everybody else too, and I mean, I'm just like, I'm just really like blown away by like people's rejection of like truth and how they can twist this. Because I mean, like for me, it's like, I mean, like it's not like like I went through moments of temptation, right? And normally, if you go through moments of temptation and you want to give in, it's like, or maybe you do give in to it, you kind of want to set the Bible off to the side, and because it's like, because if you got that line in you, it's going to make that temptation not seem so good, right? And so I'm thinking, if these people are like pouring over the word of God like they are, it's like they okay, so you wouldn't dare twist the words of God. It's like, and things like that. And so it just kind of blows me away. Like, I feel like a lot of this is like willful twisting, and like they're just so passionately wanting to twist the words. And I guess that's the one thing I never understood my whole entire life, is that they're just sitting up there twisting away with their fan fiction, and so focused on wanting to create that. And to me, it's like a lot of these preachers are just like Ellen White. They're the exact same. And it just really blows me away. Um so Sherry says, God bless and remember Jeremiah 33:3. Call unto me, and I will answer thee, and shew thee great and mighty things which thou knowest not. Um, hey, Law of Faith. Yes, Truth Free's carbon dating. It's not really lies. It's just they twist what the carbon dating means, because it's built on an assumption that there's the same levels of C12 and C14 in the atmosphere the whole entire time. And so if you go by that assumption, you can make the dates look some way. But if you're saying maybe something like a global flood caused a sudden shift in it, well, maybe that would explain, like the 12 and C14 differences, in which they use to try to argue for um, things being carbon dated, thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's been a long time since I've done that. I used to do a lot of debates about creation and things like a decade ago, but kind of forgot all that information, which is kind of sad. But I basically got easy arguments that, it's like you watch like Standing for Truth, Donnie. He does like hours and hours of longer shows. And if someone wants to know more about like creation, he actually does pretty good. I disagree with him on other biblical things, but as far as creation goes and evidence against evolution, he's really solid on that. I mean, I actually would probably rank him as one of the maybe at least one of the 5 best ministries in the world, with like Answers in Genesis being number 1, maybe, and uh, people like Carl Ball, I think that's what his name is. Um, he was pretty good at it. Kent Hovind's actually pretty good at it. I know people don't like Ken for various reasons, but I think he's actually got a lot of good information on that. And then probably Donnie's somewhere right after that. So I actually think Donnie's on Standing for Truth Ministries is pretty good. If anyone wants to check him out on YouTube, um, but I try to. But for me, I don't want to get weeded down in all those details. I mean, it's great that someone does get into all those minute details. I just basically use the thermodynamics argument and say that what's it? The second law of thermodynamics, where things have they go towards a state of equilibrium. Um, Gosh, man, wow, I'm getting real rusty here. But it's basically that things don't get more complex; they have a tendency to basically break down and get less complex. You don't see complexity being created in nature, so. Um, I'm probably even a better argument though is someone like Werner Gitt, who I believe is like a German, but this guy named Werner Gitt, he's got a book called "In the Beginning Was Information," and you have to think that a life form, like let's say it was miraculously a single cell miraculously got created, which would defy odds, right? Like it's almost astronomical. It's pretty much an astronomical impossibility. But let's say a cell did get created, a single cell organism. That cell still has to know, like, that it's hungry, that it's in need of anything, and it's got to have an information system in order to know all these things. So where would that information system come from? And if it didn't have this information system, how would it know anything? And if it didn't know anything, how would it survive? So even if it miraculously got created somehow, how would it possibly survive without an information system? It's got to know it's got needs of something. It's got to know what hunger is, what pain is, what all these other things are. If it doesn't even know that, why is it going to bother to keep itself alive? Why would it bother eating? Right? Why would it bother feeding itself? So to me, just the fact that nothing can exist, nothing looks like it can exist without information. So that means something has to put the information system in there. So I just kind of default to that and go, okay, that does it. And I just would rather focus my time on other things, not saying those other things, those details aren't important. But to me, that's like the simpler argument against like evolution and atheism is things like that. Like I like to try to just keep my arguments real simple and basic when it comes to atheism, because I'm not going to get weeded down into details of how this functions and that, because to me that's just we're just talking mechanics. It's like talking shop. Let's just talk the basic, like, can something even exist in the first place, and what's the most basic thing that you need in order for something to exist and survive. So I tried challenging like years ago, like someone like Stefan Molyneux, because there was no one really trying to debate these guys. I tried to put out debates, debate challenges to them, and I kind of gave up on atheists because I didn't think any atheist wanted to talk. So that's why, and people go, well, why don't you ever talk to atheists or have shows like that? Because to me, they didn't look interested. I tried to do it years ago, before I had like a channel deleted. That my original channel used to do that. And to be honest, they didn't have any responses. I put out something, they didn't even know how to respond to it. So Sherry says, most debates come from this Proverbs 13:10. Only by pride cometh contention, but with the well-advised is wisdom. And she says, James 3:13, who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him shew out of a good conversation, his works with meekness of wisdom. James 3:14. But if ye have bitter envy and strife in your heart, glory not and lie not against the truth. James 3:15. The wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, and devilish. For where envy and strife is, there is confusion in every evil work. The thing about debates is when I get into debates, people go, "Oh, debating's horrible. It's bad." I'm not saying Sherry's saying that, because Sherry, I obviously watches some debates. I've seen her on debate channel, so obviously if she thought it was horrible, she wouldn't be watching them. So I'm not saying that she thinks this, but this is just in general because I've heard people say, "Oh, Chris, you shouldn't try to go into debates with people," and it's basically just to show. It's not from my ego. Like, I don't really care about winning a debate because, to be honest, there are some debates I would like to lose. Like if someone could actually prove to me a Friday crucifixion, right? Because I believe in a Wednesday crucifixion. I would gladly debate, and it wouldn't bother me to lose the debate, to be honest, because if I lost the debate, that means I got one more thing I agree with most people on, because most people believe in a Friday crucifixion. I don't see how you can have 3 days and 3 nights with it. So I don't believe in it. I believe Wednesday, right? I also believe in a Sabbath resurrection and not a Sunday resurrection. But if I got into a debate, I wouldn't mind losing these debates because it's just, to me, it's one more thing I agree with. My whole thing with debate is it's more from a Socratic dialectic is why I would like to debate, just because what I get tired of is, most people don't want to be embarrassed, right? And so you don't want to get up there and sound stupid and have a bunch of people watching. So you're going to bring your best argument. I don't want my time wasted with people with weak arguments who haven't really looked into it. And most people who are willing to debate have looked into it. And the whole point of me debating is not so much to beat my opponent. It's to present the audience like, look, here's the strongest argument for my case, and the other guy is bringing the strongest argument for his case. That way some new Christian can watch it and figure out what the truth is, but maybe they can arrive to that conclusion faster if they see two people bringing a strong argument, and that way they come to this quicker. So that's the only purpose I debate people. When I challenge people to debate, it's like, well, let's see that. And I also think that some people have such weak arguments that if they had to actually hear people critique them, that they would wind up finding out that they're in error. Now some people are so stubborn they won't figure it out, but there are some people, when they start seeing the comment, like they think they got such a strong position. And then when they actually hear comments and they can hear from outside sources, they start to think about if their position's really right. Now, some people will just, harden their hearts and settle in and fight it no matter what. I get that. But then there's other people, sit there and go, whoa, they had themselves in such an echo chamber. Because I know from growing up, I'm almost 50 years old, right? And when I grew up, a lot of people, it's like if you called into a talk show and I had a different opinion, if the host didn't like that, the first they try to run you off the show. They wouldn't hear it. Like if you said, like if someone's like, well, I think Jesus fulfilled the 70th week, click, they'd hang up the phone on you. Now, if you went into a chat room, these like chat, these people used to ban you, like, oh, you believe this, boom, you're not allowed to speak, right? A lot. So that's why I'm really, I push free speech on my channel. I don't ban no one, whether you post your own channel, say, hey, I got a show right now, even during my own show, which most people would find disrespectful. I don't care. I'd rather have you do something like that during my show and not block your free speech rather than someone saying I'm trying to control the narrative. So someone could start a show right now and say, I disagree with everything Chris is saying. You should come to my show right now and hear what I'm saying. And I'll put this heretic in his place. And I'm cool with it. Other channels, they would yell at you. They would get mad. They wouldn't even let you post it. They would ban your comment as soon as you'd said it and ban you from ever speaking. I don't do that stuff. And it's like, when I was like growing up, that whole thing was, it's like, oh no, you hear a preacher run you out of the church, I got to protect my flock, and I can't let them hear one thing that disagrees with me. And so you never got to challenge them. I don't know what you mean by lost many times. So here's a Seventh-day Adventist. I could let you come on here right now. Oh, okay, so Danny Nancy says Septuagint says prophet. So he's talking about earlier when we brought up the Daniel 9, verse 24, where it says seal up the vision and the prophecy. He says the Septuagint says prophet. So that's a little extra confirmation if someone wanted to know. Now, I'm not going to say the Septuagint's 100% perfect, because I think there are some things I disagree with it with. But I mean, if it looks like, okay, like when we were going into this text in Daniel 9:24, and it says in Daniel 9:24, if it says prophet, and we look up the interlinear and we look up all the times it says okay, so right here, even though this says prophecy, seal up the vision and prophecy, but when we actually look at this word, we only see prophecy used one time, and it was only in that exact spot, right? All the other times it was prophet and prophets. So if we see that in the Masoretic text, which is what I think they're using here, but if we see that in the Masoretic text, and we see that in the Septuagint that it says prophet, it's probably prophet. So especially when it says it, when that word's used that many times, and it's always translated prophet and all the other times in the Masoretic text, yet and in the Septuagint, in that exact same place it says prophet. Probably a really good point that it's supposed to be prophet. So I need to keep that in mind, because I'm writing a book. So I appreciate Danny Nancy for bringing that up, and Mike for bringing that up earlier. Because I'm writing a book about Daniel 9, and I do want to make sure I have an accurate translation of just that chapter. And so I'm going to be working with like a friend of mine who's Jewish, who actually knows the Hebrew, really well, and just to make sure we get a really good translation of those words so people know how to properly do it. And I'm going to give them a few different ways you can look at it, followed by the way I interpret the text. So that's what the whole goal of the book is. So thanks, Adrian. I kind of just woke up from a nap, so hopefully I'm not too much of a wreck. I just want to get this video done. But prima scriptura. Okay, so you say I lost many times. I haven't. I don't think anyone's thought I've lost a debate. Because I mean, what debate did I lose? Because especially when I talked to you, you took almost 4 hours without even being able to interpret the text for me, right? Because I just asked you for your interpretation of Daniel 8 verses 9 through 12. That's all I wanted. I was like, just tell me what's going on in this text so I can figure out how the Seventh-day Adventists read it. And you couldn't do it. So I wouldn't say I lost, man. It's like, who are you to speak when I kept my show going for 4 extra hours just so you could try to tell me that, and you couldn't tell me that. And like I said, another thing you need to do is to explain to me why they got the definite singular article for the morning, the evening in verse 26. Because it says the vision of the morning and the evening was true and still up the vision, right? So why is there a focus on the morning and the evening and the singular morning and evening? Just one. So because you got to think, if your interpretation's right, that means out of all those evenings and mornings, the vision of one evening and one morning is true. If going by the way you read the text. So why would it be focused on just one singular evening and morning out of so-called 2,300 years, and God's going to focus on just one evening and one morning? Or does it make more sense that there's something that's continually going on? Because normally, like in Revelations, where it says, and the wicked shall have no rest day or night. Well, that day or night's like a merism, meaning continually. And so since the tamid sacrifice means continual, and since it's done evening and morning, because that's why God has them do it evening and morning, because by doing it evening and morning, it's to represent like a continualness of it, right? And you got to think that tamid sacrifice is even called the continual. That's what tamid means, right? Or tamid. I think I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. It might be like tamid, but it looks like tamid to me. But I think it might be called tamid. But the tamid sacrifice. The reason why it's called the continual is because it's done evening and morning. And then we see a reference 2,300 evening, morning, both in the singular in verse 8:14. That's in the singular. So I'm going to show that. So first I'm going to go down here so you can see this. Ha erev, ha boker. It says noun, masculine, singular. Noun, masculine, singular. Yes, they have mornings here and evenings here, but it's actually in the singular. This is because it would be bekarim and aravim, right? If it was plural. And it would need to be plural if the focus was on 2,300 days or 2,300 years, right? It would have to be plural in that verse, but it's not. It's referring to only one singular evening and morning. And so if it's only referring to one singular evening and morning, it's either the whole prophecy is focused on just a one-day event with a literal evening and morning, or it's talking about something that's done, an event that happens evening and morning, like a sacrifice. Then if you say that, like the ha tamid, the continual, and then also it's done evening, morning, see, like then that makes sense. But you can't, I would let you on my show right now if you would just go over that one point. You're not allowed to go over anything else, just explain that one point. If you want to come on my show, I'll drop the link. If you want to go over my show and come onto my show and go over just that one point, why does it have it in the definite article singular in verse 26 if your interpretation's true? Make that make sense. So when we go up here, we're going to see that in this verse, this is singular also. We still have the singular. Morning, evening, morning in the singular. It shouldn't, like this plural down here, whoever's the English translator does not have that right. It's and I mean I can bring Hebrew speakers on here if anyone thinks something wrong. You can go look it up and even in Bing, right? We can go to Bing right now. I'll ask the AI. In Daniel chapter 8 is morning and evening in the singular in that verse. Just so people know I'm not making this up. Okay. Well, I didn't mention the year-day principle. I don't know where you got that from. I just said as evening, morning in the singular. So, um, and because this is a fresh new conversation, so there's nothing previously there. Um, so anyway, one thing interesting about this is it says that this is like this sacrifice way of interpreting it is the literal way of interpreting it, whereas this 2,300 years is like a symbolic. But where do we even see the symbolism arrived from the text, right? So I'm going to do the same thing down here for verse 26. Is verse 26 is the words evening and morning also singular, and are they in the definite article? And that would probably lead to an interpretation that it's either referring to a literal event or like a ritual that happens evening and morning. So it's referring to it in the singular because it's describing a singular event. In verse 14, I'm guessing that the reason why it says evening, morning, 2300 is because the 2300 represents each instance of sacrifice. And so that could probably mean that this actually happened over 1,150 days. What's the strongest argument someone can make just from reading Daniel chapter 8 that the year day principle should even be applied? Because when I'm reading the text, I don't even see the Hebrew word for day. And so I'm wondering why we would even apply the year day principle when I see nothing in the text that speaks of applying this principle. So, what's the strongest argument just from Daniel chapter 8 itself that there's anything within this chapter that says we should use the day year principle? I want to see what is the strongest argument anyone's ever came up with. Just using the text. Oh, it's muted? Oh man, I'm sorry, guys. Oh, oh my gosh. Sorry about that. Oh my gosh. So I'm sitting here in silence the whole time. Man, Adrian, I'm so sorry, everyone. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. Well, let me see if I can. On StreamYard, it looked like it was saying that. Oh, I guess the audio wasn't on. Okay. Oh, so sorry about that, everybody. My gosh. Or I would have just read the thing myself. Um, well,
In Daniel 8, verse 14, the Hebrew words for evening and morning are indeed in the singular form. The verse uses the
oh
terms
god.
erev for evening and boker for morning. This has led to various interpretations, especially concerning the phrase 2,300 evenings and mornings, which is often discussed in the context of the year-day principle. The original Hebrew text does not explicitly state days, leading some to interpret the evenings and mornings as referring to the daily sacrifices, thus taking the number literally as 2,300 sacrifices. Others interpret this period symbolically, applying the year-day principle to signify 2,300 years. This difference in interpretation is significant in theological discussions, particularly within the Seventh-day Adventist tradition, which historically applies the year-day principle to this prophecy. The linguistic analysis of the original text is crucial for understanding the intended meaning, and it's important to consider the historical and textual context when interpreting these terms. The singular usage in Hebrew can be indicative of the literal daily cycle of evening and morning, which aligns with the critical view of the year-day principle you've mentioned.
Like I said, I never mentioned it in this conversation, so I don't know why. So I said in verse 26, is the words evening, morning also singular, and and are they in the definite article? So let me scroll down. I'll just go ahead and play it. Sorry, everyone, for. So you can see the question and try and blow it up just a little bit.
Yes, in Daniel 8, verse 26, the Hebrew words for evening and morning are also in the singular form and are accompanied by the definite article. The verse in Hebrew is Yumare harev vi haboker, where harev is the evening and vi haboker is and the morning. Both terms use the definite article, the, indicating a specific evening and morning. The presence of the definite article can affect the interpretation of the text, as it may emphasize the particularity of the events or time periods being referred to. This specificity is important in theological discussions, especially when considering the precision of language and grammar in biblical Hebrew. The text's exact wording and structure can lead to different understandings of the prophetic timeline and its significance.
Okay. So I'm going to get to hear this question. And so, anyway, my question was, and that would probably lead to an interpretation that it's either referring to a literal event, like a ritual that happens evening, morning. So so it's referring to it in the singular because it's describing a singular event.
Your interpretation aligns well with the textual nuances of the original Hebrew. The singular form combined with the definite article does suggest a reference to specific events or rituals that occur in the evening and morning. This could indeed point to the daily sacrifices that were a central part of the temple service in ancient Israel. Each evening and morning would then represent one complete cycle of the daily sacrificial ritual. The specificity of the language in Daniel 8 verse 26, with the use of the definite article, supports the idea that the prophecy is not speaking in generalities, but referring to particular instances of these sacrifices. This interpretation would be more literal and tied to the actual temple practices, as opposed to a symbolic or prophetic timeline that spans a broader historical period. In theological discussions, especially those that value precise language and adherence to Hebrew grammar rules, such details are crucial for forming a robust understanding of the text. It's important to consider these linguistic elements when engaging in any rigorous analysis of biblical prophecies.
Which the Seventh-day Adventists completely ignore. So, oh yeah, here, I gotta get to this question too. So I say in verse 14, I'm guessing that the reason why it says evening, morning, 2300 is because the 2300 represents each instance of sacrifice, so that it could probably mean that this actually happened over 1,150 days.
Your interpretation of Daniel 8 verse 14 is a thoughtful one and reflects a common understanding among those who take a literal approach to the text. The verse states, "Unto 2,300 evenings and mornings, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed." The original Hebrew phrase, erev boker, is indeed singular, which suggests individual instances of the evening and morning sacrifices. If we consider each evening and morning as one day of sacrifice, then the 2,300 evenings and mornings would represent 2,300 individual sacrifices. Since the temple service included one sacrifice in the evening and one in the morning, this would imply that the total duration is 1,150 days, with 2 sacrifices per day. This interpretation aligns with a literal and historical view of the prophecy, focusing on the actual events and practices of the temple. It's a perspective that takes into account the precise language of the original Hebrew text and the context of ancient Israelite worship rituals. It's important to note that this is one of several interpretations, and different theological traditions may understand these verses differently, especially when considering prophetic symbolism and the application of the year-day principle. However, your analysis is consistent with a literal reading that emphasizes the specific details of the text.
Okay, so then my last question was, what's the strongest argument someone can make just from reading Daniel chapter 8 that the year-day principle should even be applied? Because when I'm reading the text, I don't see the Hebrew word for day, so I'm wondering why we would even apply the year-day principle when I see nothing in the text. That speaks of I don't see nothing that speaks of applying this principle. So what's the strongest argument just from Daniel chapter 8 itself that there's anything within this chapter that says we should use the day-year principle? So let's see what the AI says.
The strongest argument for applying the year-day principle to Daniel chapter 8, specifically to the prophecy of the 2,300 evenings and mornings, comes from the broader context of biblical prophecy, where symbolic language is often used to represent longer periods of time. Proponents of the year-day principle argue that prophetic time periods in Scripture are sometimes symbolic, with a day representing a year. One of the key arguments is based on the consistency of prophetic interpretation. For example, in the book of Ezekiel, God explicitly uses the phrase, "I have appointed thee each day for a year," Ezekiel 4 verse 6. This has led some to apply the same principle to other prophetic passages, including Daniel 8, even though the text does not explicitly mention days in the context of the 2,300 evenings and mornings. Additionally, supporters of the year-day principle might point to the historical fulfillment of prophecies as evidence. They argue that the literal interpretation of the 2,300 evenings and mornings does not align with significant historical events, whereas interpreting each day as a year leads to a timeline that corresponds with notable historical and religious developments. It's important to note that the year-day principle is not without controversy, and many scholars and theologians have different views on its validity. The application of the year-day principle to Daniel 8 is particularly significant in Seventh-day Adventist theology, which historically links the prophecy to the investigative judgment beginning in 1844. Ultimately, the interpretation of prophetic time periods is a complex issue that involves understanding the genre of apocalyptic literature, the intent of the author.
But basically, there's nothing in the text is what it's telling us. There's no one has a good argument for doing it. They just decide to go do it. Hey, if we found one spot in Ezekiel or one spot in Numbers where they do it, so we're just gonna assume we can just do it. Just assume your interpretation onto the text. So there's really nothing. So I'm pretty sure that we're done with this whole belief system, right? There's no reason to believe it. She's a false prophet. Everyone should be done with it. Oh, this is interesting. Danny Nancy says, for your information, I'm an ex-Adventist Sabbath keeper before and after SDA. Oh, hey, man, that is good to hear, because I keep Sabbath myself. So, and that's kind of why I'm doing this, because I'm like, because guys, eventually, if you're going to actually, find the truth like this guy did, if you're going to find the truth, it's like you don't want to see these people. You want to have a church for them to go to, because one of the things is, if you come out of Seventh-day Adventism and there's no church, it's like, me personally, I don't think you're going into something much better to go into like the common church we see today, because we watched in 2020 what did all the churches do? They just went right along with everything. We really didn't see no one standing up to anything going on. And this wouldn't have ever happened if these people were awake in the first place. So I think there's a big problem with, truth going on with all these crazy things people do anyway. It's like I see a lot of miniature Ellen Whites in most of these churches anyway, the way they handle the Bible. I don't really see much of a difference, to be honest. It's just they don't outright call themselves prophets. And so there's maybe a little something better there, and there's not so much this thing where it's like, well, we got this prophet, so they're this person that's almost like a pope set up in the church, so you don't have that issue. But I still don't like a lot of these church leaders that are basically pushing fan fiction, the way they're twisting everything and telling people, oh, just ignore what the Catholic Church is doing, because that's my biggest issue is we're leaving the southern border open. We watched the Catholic Church remove the Bibles from public schools in America, and we watched the Catholic Church run our CIA, run our FBI, run our DHS, or the Department of Homeland Security. They run the ICE, which is like the immigration. I can't remember all the initials for it, but it basically handles the immigration and stuff like that. They run all these things, They also, it's like our government pays the Catholic Church billions of dollars for immigrants that come in here. And because the Catholic Church, if they do these immigration programs, they receive money from our United States government, just as long as they don't discriminate, what immigrants. But so they're influencing them because, this looks like it's the Catholic Church, running all this for us. They're receiving money. They're looking good to these immigrants. Plus, but most of them are coming in from south of the border, which are 90% Catholic countries. And then everyone's like, well, why does our countries keep getting the same way? Well, I don't know. We're bringing in a lot of Catholic immigrants. And they're voting Democrat. And these cities are getting more populated with them. And, look at the populations of them growing. And it's like, I don't know, put two and two together. And these people don't do it, so it's like, I got issues with other churches, so basically, I want to help start churches, or if people are trying to, what I would more likely prefer, I don't want to start the church. I would like to help others that are better at running churches start churches. So it's like if someone knows, like anyone ever wants me to promote someone's church, you're trying to start a home church, especially if you keep the Sabbath, I'd like to help promote you. So, if anyone wants to do that and you're trying to do that and help you out and help others find you, if that's what you're trying to do. Because I'm not saying that I should be running churches or anything. I would rather have other people run them and help those people, receive support, and I think that's more likely. I mean, mostly what we need to do, and people need to come out of these SDA churches because they're not going to stay in them. It's a false church with a false prophet. So it's like just like this guy, just come out of the thing. You see what it is, just come out of it. I mean, and I'm, it's like, I'm not going to hate him. I'm not going to, I'm like, hey, great. You came out of it. You're an ex-Adventist. That's a great thing, praise God. Like, I'm not sitting here ever judging that person. Like, don't think, oh, well, if I admit I'm wrong, I'm going to look real stupid. So I better keep doubling down because that even looks worse. That looks like you're hardening your heart and you're resisting God and you don't want to listen, even though it's plain as day, this woman's a false prophet. It's plain as day that this thing does not add up to Scripture. This whole October 22nd, 1844, especially when you got a calendar that's missing a month, right? Like because the more simpler argument, because people seem like they cannot comprehend that it's really weird for a Jewish calendar to have back-to-back Passovers in May. Like Seventh-day Adventists don't think that's weird, even though you can ask any Jew, Karaite, whatever kind of Jew you want to ask them if that's a little weird that you're following a calendar that had back-to-back Passovers in May. And I don't care if you want to keep going, oh, we go by the barley harvest and we don't know what it's like there. Don't you have any documents from that time? Or are you just trusting that this guy's coming up with a good calendar? Because when I'm looking at it, I'm going to just make this one final point because I want to keep this show definitely under 2.5 hours. I didn't even mean it for it to go this long. I just wanted to go an hour. But when we're looking at this calendar, it's like we see they got a leap year here. And this is supposed to be their Karaite calendar. Look, according to the true biblical reckoning, and they got Jewish year for 1843, and then they add on this. They add a leap year, and so he's saying this is their calendar right here, right? And because right here you got him pointing to October 22nd. Right. So he's adding a month. He's adding this. This is starting in March. So this is this whole year right here because he's got Gregorian year up here. So we got January. So right here, this was December 1843. So now this is starting 1844 right here. Right. So now this is the 1844 year and it goes all the way to October. So we got Sabat, Adar, Viadar, a leap year, right? Well, the previous year, they had Nisan start on April 29th. So if you have Nisan start on April 29th, I'm looking at this calendar going, you're missing a Jewish month. You knocked out a whole Jewish month out of here because on your calendar, you shouldn't have a Viadar right here because this is a Dar too. That would be your leap month, right? This is your 13th month right here. Well, I mean, are you telling me like on April 29th of 1843, that was not a leap year? And even if it wasn't a leap year, I mean, if it's a leap, we know no Jewish calendar has back-to-back leap years. So what is this calendar that you're showing us? You're claiming this is a Jewish calendar, your Karaite calendar. Because you said, according to the true biblical reckoning, preserved by the Karaite Jews. So this is supposed to be your true Karaite reckoning, right? And that doesn't jive to have April 29th, start your Nisan. We know you got to have 12 months. So that means your Nisan ended almost by the end of May, because you would have a Passover would be around May 13th, 14th. So we know there's 29 days in a month, just about 29 to 30. So that would take you almost all the way up to May. And so if you keep adding on months, so now you got 11 more months to add on to that. Well, we know you should at least come up to March with Adar, if that's the case. Your Adar should not end until April, about April 17th that year. All right. Because if you keep knocking one day off, 0.5 days, we know it would be about April 18th. Okay, about April 18th. That's right. April 18th, April 19th, something right around there, right? So that's where that line is. So that's when your Nisan should start. Right here, well, you got Nisan started, but you see, Adar should have finished here. And this should only be 12 months, not 13 months. So right here, that's a really weird thing. So this shows me that these guys do not have a clue what they're doing. They're just making this stuff up. Because there's no way you could have 13 months in between a Nisan that started on April 29th all the way to your next Nisan, which you say is starting on April 18th. Well, actually, I take that back. March, what would it be? March 20th is when you said Viadar started, okay? But that would have to be Adar. Like you can't, you couldn't get 13 months in between April 29th and March. Hold on, I'm getting a little confused here. Yeah. So you couldn't get 13 months in between April 29th to April 18th, right? Because April to April, we know, is 12 months, right? So if April to April is 12 months and they started their Nisan on April 29th, and we know April to April is 12 months, so here's the easier way to do it. April to April is 12 months, but yet, why do you got Viadar here? You got 13 months somehow. How did you do that? Think about that. Like, that just shows you these people just are making things up, and you're just going to go trust them with your soul and call this person a prophet? Because remember, you're breaking 7 commandments if you're following a false prophet, because you're creating an idol. You're setting her up in the place of God because you're saying her words are God. Her words come from God, so everything she speaks is God. So you're saying, no, those aren't her words; those are God's words that she's speaking, and that her books are equal to the Bible, because that's what Adventists believe. They won't tell you that straight up, because they'll say, "Oh, we don't think they're scripture," because they don't include them in one big old Bible, but they actually do think of them as scripture. And they interpret the entire Bible through her books first. It's not, I'm going to interpret her books through the Bible first. I'm going to interpret what she said. I'm going to interpret the Bible through what she says. So they're setting this woman up in the place of God, claiming her words are of God, which creates an idol, which breaks the first commandment, breaks the second commandment. It breaks Sabbath, because now you're making Sabbath unholy. So now you just broke the fourth commandment. So now you're no longer a Sabbath keeper either. So you can stop lying to yourself about that. You're breaking that commandment too. You're also telling people she's a true prophet. So now you're bearing false witness. So you're breaking another commandment. Now these people give to your church thinking she's a true prophet, thinking you're a true church, thinking this is actually Christian. So now it's theft through fraud. So now you're breaking another commandment, which is thou shalt not steal. And if you commit fraud, you are stealing. If I tell someone this car can go 60 miles an hour and it can't even do 2 miles an hour, but they buy this car from me thinking it's going to go 60 miles per hour, I just stole from them. Yes, I sold them a car, but I stole from them because I did not. What they're buying is not what they thought they were buying, is not what they're actually getting. And that's the same thing with your false church. You're telling them this, and so you are stealing from them. You're stealing from people. and stop being so callous about it and stop hardening your heart. Come out of this church. There's no reason to believe it anymore. This stuff doesn't even make sense. You cannot even make sense. Find me, how did you get a 13th month? Let me just show you some of their one of their writings, because some people might be like, oh, well, wait, Chris, because I know on one of these pages, it's actually got where they say it right in the text. This isn't it. I know I got it right here somewhere, though. Oh, was that it? Maybe this is it. Because they'll say it right in the text that they started it. Oh, I might have to go to Bob Pickle's site. Because Bob Pickle is a... Yeah, here, I'll just go to Bob Pickle's site. He's a Seventh-day Adventist. He brings up all this stuff. Just so everyone knows that I'm not making up this date of the 29th here. Let me find it in the text. Should be... Yeah, right, here we go. It's a little small. Try to blow it up as much as possible. But anyway, it says, now there's a dispute between the rabbinical and Karaite Jews. So he's reading some letter from, it might be Snow or something like that. Yeah. Oh no, it's some letter, but anyway, it's supposed to be confirmation. I'm trying to blow this up as much as possible. But it says, now there's a dispute between the rabbinical and Karaite Jews as to the correct time of the commencing of the year. The Karaite Jews, so these are the supposed Karaite Jews they're using, on the contrary, still adhere to the letter of the Mosaic and commence with the new moon nearest the barley harvest in Judea, which is one moon later than the rabbinical year. The Jewish year of AD 1843, as the Karaites reckon it, in accordance to the Mosaic law, therefore commenced this year with the new moon. So commenced this year, that means they started the year, which is we know Nison's the first, right? So therefore, they commenced this year. So this is the part I'm going to blow up, right? This line right here. Therefore, they commenced this year with the new moon on the 29th of April. So now we know there's 12 months in a Gregorian calendar year, right? So if that's 12 months, so we know there's... So when they say that they got that leap year right here, how'd you get a 13th year? How did you get a 13th month right here? You started your 1843 in April. There's no way you can have 13 Jewish months in between April 29th. Think about this. This is almost the last day of April, right? This is basically May. So how did you get basically going from May 1st almost to April, and you got 13 months? How did you do that? Explain that to me. See, that no Seventh-day Adventist can do that, right? But here's your Karaite calendar that somehow magically did this and has an extra month. How did you magically do this? Someone doesn't know how to count. Someone doesn't know what they're doing. That's why I have so many doubts that this is even correct. Because where's your Karaite calendar at? This is your Karaite calendar, right? If that's so, why does it have back-to-back leap years? Are you telling me April 29th of 1843, that wasn't created from a leap year? Because if that wasn't, that's really weird, right? And then on top of it, you got back-to-back leap years somehow, but yet you have somehow a calendar that somehow had 13 Jewish months in the period of 12 Gregorian calendar months. It's like, especially when you started that one month when it was almost May. Like, that really doesn't make sense. You have no room to do that. So, I mean, that's like an easy point, because I don't think they understand the whole astronomical new moon thing whenever I try to explain it to them, how to explain the equinox and things like that. So my real simple argument is just look at your stupid calendar where you're trying to have 13 Jewish months in less than 12 Gregorian months. How is that possible? It should all fall apart. Come on, Seventh-day Adventist Defense League. Explain that one. Can't. Come on, what was that dude, that Seventh-day Adventist that was in here? Prima Scriptura, you want to come in on here and explain that to me? I'll throw the link out. All I got to do is say, yeah, I want to come on there, man. I'm going to explain that. Because Chris lost so many times. Come on, explain this, homeboy. Let's see it, man. Let's see this happen, man. Show me how you get 13 Jewish months when the previous Jewish from April to April. You want to show me that? Show me how you get 13 Jewish months from April to April, especially when you started that previous Jewish year on April 29th. You want to show me that? We would love to see that. And yet, here's your calendar, supposedly preserved by the Karaite Jews, right? Supposedly. But it's just not, it's not happening. So that's why October 22nd couldn't have happened. I doubt that was the Day of Atonement. So you got an impossible calendar. You're going against the common sense interpretation of the Hebrew grammar. You don't even find anything within the text of Daniel 8 that even tells you should turn it into the evening mornings into years. Every single time when evening morning is ever mentioned in the Bible, it always means day. Go look at the Genesis, the creation account. Every single time it says evening morning was the first day, evening morning was the second day, evening morning was the third day. It's always one single day, isn't it? It's not a year. It's always a day. So show me all the times when an evening and morning in the Bible ever meant year. Show me that. You can't find a single instance. So we can't turn an evening morning into a year. Every single time evening and morning is always used, it always meant one day, right? And that's the best argument you can make. The other times when the evening morning's used, it's always meant sacrifice. So it's either talking about a sacrifice or talking about a literal day. It's never meant anything else in the entire Bible. So, and we don't even see the word day in the text of Daniel 8. We only see evening morning mentioned and the vision of the evening morning. So it's, I think it's completely done. I think this is probably the last show I even need to do on this. Maybe I'll do a more compressed video because I'm just trying to get my thoughts out. But this is basically it. Like, I don't know what else needs to be said. I think your whole belief system falls apart because we know this is a junk calendar. Completely junk. I should go up here. Maybe they got a little bit more information up here. Because it's telling me, it's real funny that they say corrected reckoning for the Jewish year 1843. Made by Miller Associates in the spring of 1843 through adopting the true biblical reckoning for the sacred year according to the original Karaite position. So it says color key, Gregorian calendar, Rabbinite time reckoning, Karaite time reckoning. So they say this is March 21st. And they go, that's the old reckoning. So they're saying that this Jewish year was a little off. And then this must mean it started a month later. So they got it starting. I'm really confused as to what they're doing, man. Because like down here, they say Karaite reckoning, April 1st to April 19th, but they're see, this is what I'm meaning by like this is confusing to me. They did not know. They did not look at the Karaite calendar information. This does not. I'm like really confused at what they even did here, because when I'm reading that one letter that we just read, it says the Karaite Jews, on the contrary, still adhere to the letter of the Mosaic, and it says, therefore, commence this year with the new moon on the 29th of April. So, like, this is real confusing to me, because right here it's saying the 1st of April to the 19th of April of 1844. And they're on true biblical calculation, common rabbinical reckoning. And I really don't understand this. Because I've read on this, and this isn't just Bob Pickle. I've read other pioneer information where it's like, oh yeah, it's like the April 29th. And so I'm really confused. Like, who are you talking to, and what are we talking about here? And because it looks like to me, you took no, see, up here, this is wrong too. Because you're saying that the Jews started their previous year on March 21st. I don't think that's right. I'm going to go look that up now that I noticed that. So Heb Cal 1843. I don't think they started their previous year. Oh man, I think that's a lie. But we're going to see. Because he's saying they started on the 21st. Yeah, I mean, such a lie, man. They didn't even look. They're telling you it was the 19th of Adar. So they didn't start it there. They started in April themselves. So they started it on the 1st. So what in the world are you even talking about? This is the rabbinical calendar right here. See, they're really making stuff up, man. Like that, because that's not even the rabbinical. Where are you getting this from? March 21st? You just March 21st to March 21st. It's like what he did. Like, these people are really making things up. Okay, the more I look at this, the more of a mess and a lie this looks like to me, because it's like you didn't even, like, you would have said April 1st. Because we just saw that. So the rabbinics reckoned it from April 1st. Then you got your other documents that are saying the Karaites you're talking to are saying they started it on the 29th, not April 1st. They started on the 29th, according to your Karaites. So this should have been right here. Should be right over here, the 29th of April. And the rabbinics started theirs here. And then the following year, they started on March 21st. So the rabbinic calendar goes April, and then it starts their next year. This is April 1st, and then they start their next year on March 21st. So I mean, like, this is like a just complete lie and made up stuff. Like, you don't even know what the rabbinic calendar says. Like, this just shows you that they're just feeding people a bunch of dumb stuff. Because you'd think, like, if any of these followers that were believing this, they would have pointed that out and been like, whoa, what Jew did you even talk to? What Jew started their calendar on March 21st of 1843? What Jew did you possibly talk to? You liars. So let's see here, because I didn't even notice that until just now. And I've brought that up before. So what other tall tales might they even be trying to spin? I don't even know if I can read this. I'm trying to blow this up. And to me, this was a little confusing to even look at. wish I could. Just want to read this part of it. I guess I'm not going to be able to read this part, so I'm sorry. Kind of curious what this insanity even says. I guess this is just their 457 date, it looks like, and they're trying to reckon it to land on October 22nd, 1844. But I mean, I guess that's like another big thing. It's like they couldn't even get the right Jewish common year, the rabbinical reckoning, figured out. Yeah, I was wondering how they even came up with this bottom part. So that was really confusing. So these people definitely, I think I'm pretty much made my case that they really made things up. So it says, back to the Millerites of 1844. Some critics have claimed that Samuel Snow concocted the idea of Yom Kippur being in October so that they would have longer for his message to take effect. This is not true, for the Millerites were well aware of the Karaite reckoning before Snow came around with his message of the summer of 1844. So they keep saying they got this from the Karaites. Oh yeah, so this even came out of their signs of the times. So this was in their paper. So they're the ones saying that as the Karaites reckon it in accordance with Mosaic law, therefore commenced this year with the new moon on April 29th. So I'm going to go look this up. I'm going to see if I can find the original signs of the times so people don't go, oh, you're just looking at some Bob Pickle site. That can't be real. Because I've actually had them say that before. Like, oh my gosh, that's not even real. So June 21st. So I'm on page 123. See here, can I get this? Can I read it online? So let's see here if I can find it like this. Oh gosh. Okay, well, this might get boring here because I'm trying to just look for one specific. So this is August. I need to find the signs of the time, June 21st. How would I go about finding that? Pride Pioneer. June. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, I wish I could find that. Doesn't have that. Okay, I know what I'm going to try doing. Maybe the AI can help me find this. Can you help me find this specific Seventh-day Adventist writing? Because I want to look it up online and I can't find it myself.
Certainly. You can find the writings from The Signs of the Times through the L&G, White Writings website, which includes a collection of articles that may contain the one you're looking for. Additionally, the Adventist Digital Library is a valuable resource for historical Seventh-day Adventist periodicals, including The Signs of the Times. While I can't provide direct access to the specific page from June 21st, 1843, these resources should help you in your search for Seventh-day Adventist writings. If the exact page is not available online, it might be included in a physical archive or a specialized collection that you could access through a theological library or an academic institution. Happy researching.
Okay, so be nice to find that because I'd like to find that same exact source that Bob Pickle just used. Okay, so maybe this is it. So it looks like I can maybe find it from here. What was it? It's June 21st. Okay. But this is 1874, so I need to find... Oh, that's really nice. Oh, man. Well, he found it. And he's quoting from it, and he says it. And this is a Seventh-day Adventist, so not me making it up. Maybe I can try it this way. I'll just copy this. This is just a portion of my show. I'm pretty much done with my show. I'm just trying to find this one thing for future reference for myself. I'm looking for this exact quote in an Adventist writing.
The quote you're referring to is indeed from an Adventist writing. It discusses the difference in the reckoning of the Jewish year between rabbinical and Karaite Jews, particularly in relation to the prophecy concerning the 2,300 days found in the book of Daniel. This quote can be found in the historical Adventist literature that deals with the interpretation of prophetic timelines, especially around the period leading up to 1844, which was significant in Adventist eschatology. The passage is cited in the context of the Millwright movement's study of the prophetic periods and their conclusions about the timing of the end of the 2,300 days. It reflects the Millerites' shift from the rabbinical to the Karaite reckoning of the Jewish year, which they believed would end in April 1844, thus marking the end of the prophetic period mentioned in Daniel 8 verse 14. This specific quote is documented in the volume, The Prophetic Faith of Our Fathers, Volume 4, which is part of a comprehensive series on the history of prophetic interpretation. You can explore this work for a deeper understanding of the historical and theological context of the quote. Additionally, the topic is discussed in various articles and papers that analyze the Karaite calendar and its significance to the Millwright movement. For further study, you may also look into the archives of the L&G. White writings, which contain a wealth of information on Seventh-day Adventist beliefs and history, including discussions on the prophetic timelines and their interpretations.
Oh, right here, we got it. I got it. I see it. I see it. So this is in the Prophetic Faith of Our Fathers, Volume 4, so I'm not making it up, right? And we got it right here. Now there is a dispute between the rabbinical and the Karaite Jews as to the correct commencing of the year. The former rabbinical Jews are scattered throughout all over the world and cannot observe the time of the ripening of that harvest in Judea. They therefore regulate the commencement of the year by astronomical calculations and commence with the first day of the new moon nearest the vernal equinox, when the sun is in Aries. The Karaite Jews, on the contrary, still adhere to the letter of the Mosaic law and commence with the new moon nearest the barley harvest in Judea, which is one new moon later than the rabbinical year. But it's not always. See, that's where they don't know what they're talking about, and I doubt that these people that are just studying this, especially when you do not have internet in those days, how fast are you able to communicate with people? Because it's taken me almost a little over a year of studying this calendar. Now, granted, I'm working a lot and everything like that, and it's not my primary focus, but it's taken me a year to really wrap my mind around how the calendar exactly works and why it should be observed this way and everything like that. So that's why I have doubts as to why these people actually got it like perfectly down pat. But anyway, so it's like they therefore regulate the commencement of the year by astronomical calculations and commence with the first day of the new moon nearest the vernal equinox when the sun is in Aries. Okay, that's actually wrong. They commence it with the new moon. That's the first new moon that's after the vernal equinox is normally when the rabbinic Jews do it. And they say they commence it with the first day of the new moon nearest the vernal equinox. So I guess what he's arguing is that the rabbinic calendar, like let's say it's 13 days before the equinox, well, then they would start their calendar in March, right? Before the equinox. And which is more like a Roman Catholic way of calculating it. To my understanding, because the Catholics always have they always say that you're supposed to calculate the Jewish Passover on the first full moon after the equinox. So they're kind of going by the way Catholics calculate it, but that's not the way. That's not the way the rabbinic Jews do it, because you could see this year they celebrated it on their rabbinic calendar the exact opposite way it's being described in this literature right here. So they're completely wrong because they're going by the way the Roman Catholic Church calculates it. So this is why I know they're wrong, because they're not even going by even the rabbinical way of calculating it. Because this year, me and the rabbinic Jews both celebrated it the exact same way, which was the first new moon after the vernal equinox, which was not the new moon closest to the vernal equinox. Or actually, I guess it was. Yeah, I don't think it would. Yeah, I don't think that would be actually the closest to the vernal equinox in that way. I think that sounds like the Roman Catholic way of doing it. Because because I mean, like 14 days. Okay, so basically we started because it was, how many days would that be? 18 days after the spring equinox. So that's not exactly the new moon closest to the vernal equinox. That's 18 days later. So yeah, this is definitely completely wrong. That they're definitely only going by the Roman. So this is not the rabbinical Jews. This is the way Roman Catholics do it. So these people really don't know what they're talking about. They're really making things up. Anyway, it says the Karaite Jews, on the contrary, still adhere to the letter of the Mosaic law and commence with the new moon nearest the barley harvest in Judea, which is one moon later than the rabbinical year. It's not always, though. In fact, I don't know if it's ever, but those are details I'd get in on another video. The Jewish year of AD 1843, as the Karaites reckon it in accordance with Mosaic law, therefore commenced this year with the new moon on the 29th of April in the Jewish year of 1844, and will commence with the new moon next April 18/19, when 1843 and the 2,300 days, according to their computation, will expire. But according to rabbinical Jews, it began with the new moon, the first of last April, and will expire with the new moon of the March next. Yeah, see the rabbinical Jews right here. That you guys even said the rabbinical Jews will begin with the first. It began 1843 on the first of last April, and it will expire with the new moon in the month of March next. Whereas then, when you show this thing, this you got it right here on March, but you just said, yeah. I mean, it looks like you're saying it started on March when they actually started April 1st. But see, they got Karaite reckoning down here, and they got April 1st, and then go correct reckoning. It's like this is a really confusing calendar. Like, do you just see the inconsistency here? They're not even reckoning this right. Like, that's why it looks really made up to me. It's like, because you're saying Karaites are doing it on the 29th, but then you show a chart saying it's the first. The Karaites said it's the first, but then you were reading this and it says the rabbinical Jews reckoned it on the first, and it will expire with the new moon in the month of March. But then on here you say that they're starting their calendar on March 21st and going to March 21st. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And then if I go to the very next year, because let's see when they did, because he's saying they started on March 21st. I think they did. Yeah, see, they did start on March 21st, but they didn't start it on March 21st the year in 1843. It started April 1st. You couldn't even start it in March and have it with no leap year and have it land on the 21st. So they started it on May, because you got to think there's only like 29.5 days in a Jewish month, right? So it's going to keep being like, so if it was the 1st of April, okay, about 12 months later, you're going to subtract about 8 or 9 days, 10 days, okay, right here, 21st, okay, that's when it started. It's like, man, that is a mess. That does not even make sense. Seventh-day Adventists couldn't even explain all that. That's probably why they never notice it, because it's probably confusing to them, right? Because there's so much misinformation in here. They never looked at this. If they understood this, there's no way they would ever agree that this was right. They don't understand. These aren't okay. These probably aren't the most smartest people and the sharpest tools or sharpest tools in the tool shed, or whatever you want to say. Like, because this just does not make sense. So you're just total contradiction from the writings themselves. And here, that from your own sources, you're saying the Karaites reckon it according with the Mosaic law, therefore commenced this year with the new moon on the 29th day of April. So you got to really explain that. Like, that's really confusing to me. So I'm going to read down here. Does it say anything else? They consequently reckon that last day of the Jewish year, 1843, would close with the sunset of April 18th, 1844. Therefore, the first day of the first month of Nisan of 1844, the true Jewish time, would have its equivalent of April 19th, though the beginning of it is actually the sunset on April 18th. So thus it should read April 18/19. Himes, writing after the spring equinox of 1844, declared that the real Jewish year of 1843 had not actually expired. After the Jewish year of 1843 commencement, he gave it as his opinion that the Lord would come sometime between the 21st of March of 1843 and the 21st of March, 1844. Time has now passed by, and we are a few days beyond the time to which he believed the days might extend. Although the Jewish year has not expired but extends to the new moon in April, as we explained in our last, yet our time will be regarded by our opponents of having passed by. Yeah, I just think this looks like a mess. So that's gonna pretty much do it. I don't know really what else to do, because like we know that this looks like a made up calendar. This was not Karaite according to them, according to their own sources, because you can't get 13 months. You can't get 13 months from April 29th to here. And then, you know, up here, I mean, clearly I'm every rabbinical calendar. Like it doesn't start in March 21st. It starts at April 1st, just like your so-called Karaite reckoning up here you got. But then your Karaite letters say that the Karaites actually didn't start it on April 1st. They started on April 29th of 1843, which would start it right about here instead. So yeah, Adrian, they go out of their way to defend their beliefs rather than trying to figure out what their beliefs should be. That's right. 100%. So I think I pretty much gave people enough proof that this is a cult. There's no reason to ever believe in it. They didn't even know how to create a proper calendar. They didn't know what they're talking about, right? Clearly, all this is made up stuff. They don't know what the rabbinic Jews believe, because they're completely misrepresenting them here, completely misrepresenting them down here. So they didn't know, and they just wanted to have this date so they could have more time probably to spread their nonsense. And then they make it up with something about, oh, Jesus is starting to cleanse the temple. No, it says it will be cleansed according to Daniel 8:14. It does get cleansed. It's not waiting to be cleansed. It doesn't start getting cleansed. It was cleansed after the 2300. But they say, no, Jesus is starting to clean up his mess because his blood got the sanctuary dirty, because sins got transferred through the blood of Christ into the sanctuary. And now we're waiting for that. God's got to show the records to all these so-called heavenly beings, whoever they are, from these other worlds that Ellen White said was created before the earth, even though in Genesis 1, it says on day 4 that the lights in the sky, which include all the planets that we see in the sky, right? The lights in the sky were not created until day 4. The earth was created before that, right? So how did these planets get created before the earth got created, with these heavenly beings, or with these like celestial beings on them, who are now looking at these records to see how just God is, right? As he goes through only the believers, only the so-called believers, like not all these believers, because this investigative judgment is just the pre-Advent judgment to see what believers get to get into heaven and which ones don't. And it's the sins of the believers that got the sanctuary dirty. And so, see, Jesus's blood transferred sins into heaven. So that's how the sanctuary gets defiled in heaven, or that's why the sanctuary is getting messed up in heaven somehow. So they basically almost make Jesus into the little horn of Daniel 8. But however they want to spin this, the sanctuary is not cleansed, is it? Because there's still people sinning, and there's still people believing in Jesus. So that means more and more sins getting transferred into the heavenly sanctuary. So that's why you have to work with the Catholic Church in order to reduce the population. Because like Bill Gates said, you know, if by having more vaccines, we can reduce the population. So you go and you say, hey, Catholic Church, and hey, United States government, we're going to work with you, even though we call you the second beast of Revelation, because the Seventh-day Adventists think the United States is the second beast of Revelation. They partner with the second beast of Revelation. So this shows you what evil they really are, because they're calling the thing that they say is the second beast of Revelation, and they're partnering with it. Meanwhile, promoting the same thing that the Catholic Church is bragging about, forcing on people, the jabby jabs, right? The Catholic Church is sitting there bragging about forcing this on people, and the Seventh-day Adventists go and copy what their mother church does, and they say, okay, we're gonna force it on people. If you want to go to our schools, you have to take the shot, or you don't get to go anymore. So that you had all these Seventh-day Adventists complaining about, oh, I don't want to get this injection in order to attend college. So they're doing the same thing their mother church does, and their mother church is pushing. And they're working with the United States government. But hey, this is going to help. See, I guess they rationalize this, because if we can have abortions in our Seventh-day Adventist hospitals, and we can promote this thing that Jesuit Trump is promoting, his warp speed, and if we promote this, and even Bill Gates says it's going to reduce the population, so we're going to help God get through these records faster, because he's got to go through all these believers. He's got to show every individual thing to all these heavenly beings or beings from other worlds. He's got to go show each record and show how good and just he is, because, not withholding your son, and having your son brutalized and then nailed to a cross, that doesn't show how good and just he is and merciful or anything. He's still got to prove himself by showing everyone the records of all the believers and all the people who say they're believers, right? And he's got to go and show all of his, look how good I am, look how great my law is, and it's really an insult to God, and we can see that this is total nonsense from its get-go. The language doesn't allow for it. Your made-up calendar doesn't allow for it. They obviously didn't even know how the Jewish calendar works. They didn't even know what the Jewish calendar was, obviously. According to this, they don't even know what the rabbinical Jews are believing. So it's done. So that's it. That's my show. I don't know. The only other show I should ever make about this would be maybe a shorter show, if I can figure out how to reduce this. But this is it. Like, what else do I need to show?